Commission regular meeting. I'll begin with the roll call. Gary Newmayer here. Jennifer Brown.
I'm here.
Jacob Eltrich.
Here.
Robert Davis.
Here.
Eric Fisher.
Here.
I don't see Ravi. And Council Member Jamie Matthey.
Here.
Right, and we've also got with us IT Director Craig McBeath and Assistant IT Director Mark Owens. We're ready to roll then. Craig, do we have any public comments?
We do not have any public comments for tonight.
Okay. Did everyone have a chance to review the February 3rd minutes from our meeting? And are there any questions or comments about those? I have none myself.
I'll motion to approve the minutes.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Craig, I recall we have to do a roll call here. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. I vote aye. Jennifer?
Aye.
Jacob?
Aye.
Robert?
Aye.
Eric?
Aye.
I see Ravi has now joined us.
Aye.
Jamie, do you also vote?
No, I'm a non-voting official, I think.
Okay, fair enough. Sounds like the motion passed to accept the minutes as presented. So let's move on to the regular agenda, the annual work plan updates. First area is our, I believe, our privacy and data policies. And I can tell you that Mark organized a meeting with Ravi and I a couple of weeks ago, and he's updated us on a couple things. So Mark, you want to let the commission know what's going on?
So yeah, a lot of what we talked about were really the accountability of the city has in the social media accounts that we actually do business over. So as I talked a little bit before, I think it's becoming more and more clear through legislation that we see that city entities like ourselves are accountable for those websites and the information that we do contain in them. Right now, probably the biggest user and exposure to that is the Bloomington Police Department. So I did, since the meeting that Gary and Ravi and I have talked with Jack McQueen from the police department. A lot of the questions that came out of when the three of us met were basically around how does, what are the retention processes that that the police department have to retain the data that social media produces. So he did send me a bunch of information. I did include that in the privacy and data document that I have been sharing. And I did send an update out to Gary and Ravi just a couple days ago for review. It was just basically a list of where they store their retention policies, and data around how much they, what kind of data they keep and where they keep it. So that has been updated. And what I'm doing with this data and privacy document is basically as I meet with folks and we have our meetings and stuff, I take the questions, I try to resolve any outstanding issues we may have, and just keep kind of a running total of all the information that we produce out of that. So again, I think the other thing I'll report is we do have a product that we brought in called Archive Social. We are working on getting that set up, and basically what that is if the city would get a FOIA request for data that was actually posted through social media, we now will have the ability to search on that data through this application. And basically it covers Facebook, Twitter, It does cover our website, or it will cover by the time we're doing it. Right now, we've got Twitter active in there. We're still working on trying to get Facebook active, but I think this is it's a nominal fee for the city to have this, but I think in the long run, it could save us a lot of time and energy if we have to come up with data from social media through a FOIA request. And of course, if there's anything in a lawsuit type thing, I think it'll be very advantageous for us to have this. So again, hopefully by the next committee meeting, we'll have things up and running all across the board with it. So now I did talk to Jenna Finnegan, and according to her, we haven't really had that many, if any, requests for pulling data from social media to this point. But as we get more and more active on social media, that exposure increases. So again, I think this is a good insurance policy for us. So Gary, Ravi, did I miss anything there?
No, I think that covers pretty much it.
Yeah,
All right.
pretty
Thanks, guys.
comprehensive. You're doing a good thorough job on this, Mark. Thanks.
And is the goal here to get this document compiled so that we can have a something like a you know, I guess my original goal when I proposed this concept was to have something we could post on our website saying, this is how the city of Bloomington handles and treats data. These are our policies, you know, kind of a something where anybody who is curious could look it up. Is that what your goal was with pulling this together, Mark?
Yeah, I mean, and I've had that conversation with Jenna, because if you go out to our, social media and our websites and stuff, it really just focuses on website. And I really think we need to have statements out there that is inclusive of social media accounts. So I think once we get this all together, I think we need to work with the proper people to make sure that we can be a little more open about what our policies are, and really probably take what I've compiled and make that into a policy and implement it. So yeah, that's a good question.
And when you said you talked to the police, did that include about body cam retention?
That did, yes. Mm-hmm.
Awesome, because that's a question I've been asked multiple times. You know, what our official policy is on saving, retain, how long we're going to have that stuff, and I didn't know the answer yet. So thank you for doing that, Mark.
Absolutely. And Jamie, I've got a nice little write-up here I'll send to you specifically to that body cam, so you do have it in your back pocket.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Hey, no problem.
Okay, are we ready to move on then? Next item is 5G Cellular Communications. That's Jamie, Jacob, and Craig.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Go ahead.
But we had a pretty lengthy discussion at the end, after the end of the last meeting about 5G. And I think the long and short of it is just kind of that we should close this item for now. It seems like, what was it called? Whatever company that is taking care of the CTC, taking care of the 5G legal stuff, all of that. It seems like they're doing a pretty good job, and we're in partnership with Normal about this. And so it seems like we've got it handled for the most part right now. So I don't think there's a lot that we could really contribute at this moment. As far as like getting it implemented, I'm still trying to consider different things we might be able to do with 5G in the future that we should think about. But yeah, I think we should close it.
Yeah, no, I agree, Jacob. I think that was the general consensus after that conversation. And of course, we spent quite a bit of time on other topics, smart city topics, that we could use or talk about in place of that, which is why I put under new business an item there that we can kind of open up some of those discussions and kind of talk more about that. I'm also hoping that, we'll get further along, with CTC, and at some point be able to share some deliverables there with this group when appropriate.
Okay, fair enough. Let's move on there to city infrastructure. I really have no update there. Ravi, Jamie?
I think we were mostly just waiting to see what would come out of the audit/survey of ownership for streetlights in terms of that project. I think that's really going to be the hang up for anything moving on that.
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, from the smart street lighting, that audit is, we've got to have some actual data to work with first. And Craig, I'm not sure if you've heard an update on that recently, where that's at in terms of, I know that Tim was talking to a couple of possible vendors. Do you know if he picked anybody?
No, I'm not aware of any further updates on that.
Okay, I'll pursue to try to get an update, and I'll email out to everybody if a company has been picked to do that audit first for the street lighting side of stuff. I can also say that the intelligent traffic signaling, I'll just say that there have been meetings between the town and the city. That's one of those areas where we cooperate on pretty extensively, right? You can't have different signaling for our streetlights and when you cross the street. So, and they're working together, trying to also work with the Paris office of the Illinois Department of Transportation. We're in, I think it's Region 5, which is based out of Paris, Illinois, which is weird because Paris is right on the border of Indiana. And it's not, we've got a better relationship with them than we have in the past. And they're trying to come up with write a mutual joint grant to upgrade the entire intelligent traffic signaling system. But this is a big kind of overarching project that it'll touch other stuff that we talk about along the way, but it's going to be a long process, I think.
Do we want to maintain that on the agenda, or do we want to pull that off the agenda for the time being?
I think we could probably pull it off as something that we're going to be able to work on, and we could just maybe we revisit it as quarterly updates based on information that we get from other departments, just so there's a kind of a public record of what's going on and who's working on which parts of that going forward. This is one where Craig and I are in a monthly meeting, and we get updates periodically on this one, depending on what director is reporting on that one. So we can just provide some feedback to the group on that one.
Okay, anything else to add there on city infrastructure? Okay. Let's move on to the IT strategic plan progress update. Jennifer, Eric, Craig. Anything?
Yeah, I'll start just to kind of get the ball rolling on that one. So, Mark and I are working to finish up or finalize the IT strategy. Our plans right now, as it sits, is we're in the process of finalizing. We're doing up the executive summary and some of the backup documentation. The hope is over the next 2 weeks, we'll have that in a draft format that we can send out to all Technology Commission members. So you can review that and kind of see where we're heading, get any feedback that you have, answer any questions you have on that, incorporate those changes into the final executive summary that we're going to be presenting to administration and city council in early April, around April 2nd, I believe, with the hope of this being presented to the city council on the committee of the whole meeting on April 19th. So the second piece of that is, the IT Staffing Diagnostic. We recently ran that last month and received an enormous amount of feedback from Infotech Research on the survey that we sent out to our IT staff. The Staffing Diagnostic, just as a recap of what I talked about last week, was this is really one of the next modules in IT strategy that we need to focus on. And that's truly right-sizing the IT staff department, making sure that we have the right staffing, the right talent in place for the critical work that needs to be done, and also identify those workloads, that maybe are not critical or central to IT, to find out if there's other ways to service that area through managed services or other staff augmentation methods. So this staffing diagnostic, it was really a neat product to run through. Again, this is run through our infotech research group that we deal with. The survey was very small. It covered just a few areas for every person, and they filled out the efficiencies that we have in areas or how we're deficient in certain areas for the areas that they're responsible for, and it left a lot of open-ended feedback questions. Staff did a great job filling that out, and over the course of the week, Infotech Research, parsed that data and ran it through their system, and it spit out a 77-page report that Jennifer is looking at and surprised. But it's really good data. We've had a chance, Mark and I, to meet with Infotech Research for the results call, where they kind of really did a high-level overview of what the results are and kind of how we interpret the data so far. It's an ongoing process. There's more steps to this. This is really just the first step in the process of defining what those roles and responsibilities are. But again, I've sent that to Jennifer and Eric to review, and the hope is that we can review that in the next couple weeks, have a chance to discuss any of their feedback, and talk about anything that we need to focus on for our next diagnostic call with Infotech Research. So that again will help us in the route of, again, defining structure for the IT department and right sizing, making sure that we have the positions and talent we need. So I don't know if Eric or Jennifer have any questions yet on that.
No questions yet. When did you send that exactly?
I believe it was February 5th. Is that right, Jennifer? Okay.
Yeah, I said the same thing, Eric. I completely missed it in my inbox too. So, yeah. And then I started to try to peruse it quickly before the meeting to look prepared, and then saw the 77 pages. So,
I've got it. Yes. When do you want feedback by? Are we going to meet outside of this, or is this our forum?
Yeah, I would say we propose to try and find a time for the three of us to meet, so we can kind of go through that in further detail and answer any questions you have. And if we can do that anytime in the next week or two, that would be fine. We can do that offline.
perfect. I can prioritize this, make sure I can review it. And then maybe we can meet next week, so that since I've already missed a couple weeks, so.
Yeah, that works for me.
Great.
Okay, anything else on the IT plan? No. Okay, move on to old business. Any old business? None on our agenda. Okay, let's move on to new business then. Future downtown studies. Go ahead,
Yeah, so
Craig.
future downtown studies, this is just a topic that I threw in there, partially from last month's conversation with Alderman Matthey and Jacob on the 5G smart city stuff. We talked about a number of items of interest, that we could have, this technology commission, tasked with, and some of those revolve around, one of them was our trash collection and how we can manage, that process better through trash sensors or trash compactors, very similar to the town of Normal. They've got a new model out, that I sat in a presentation for, that integrates not only recycle and garbage, but it also incorporates 5G connectivity and infrastructure. So it'll have a mast that comes up, and we can mount cameras or digital signage on that. So I can see, that we can, when we get further along in that line, if it becomes something that we want to investigate, that this could be something that this commission could be tasked with pursuing a study on feasibility and viability, and determining what resources or what functionality we should be looking for in those specific areas. Some of the other things, there's constantly companies contacting me, either it's digital signage, smart signage, that has integrated speakers and smart speakers, so we can play music downtown and display ads and things like that. So it's kind of very similar to the current Route 66 display that we have in downtown Bloomington. I'm not sure what corner that is on. Alderman Matthew, you probably know because it's right on the same block as your storefront.
Jefferson and Main Street.
Jefferson and Main Street. So, is that something that's even feasible or wanted? There's the possibility of, trying to come up with different lighting for downtown. That's always been a kind of a sore point when it comes to the decorative lighting down there, that it doesn't really provide essential task lighting or enough task lighting, for pedestrian traffic. And it's not even on all streets of downtown. So there's a possibility that, some of the technology commission members maybe could be tasked with a feasibility study for that. And you might ask, well, why is that a technology function? Because of, the street lighting, smart street lighting is one thing, being able to vary the luminance and all that based on activity. But then it also plays a big part in our security camera system downtown and how we want to build that out. The current decorative lighting, because they're globe lighting and they just cast light everywhere. When those were put in, they really had a detrimental effect on some of the current security cameras in the downtown area. It kind of washed out the camera, and now we're just getting this glow, that's shining off of the camera globes that we have up there. So we want to make sure that the lighting is placed in the appropriate manner, and that we're also adding our security cameras in the right spot, making sure that we're both getting coverage, but then we also have the good lighting with that. So that's why it's more of a technology item, or at least portions of it might be technology related. And there was, just other handful of, ideas that kind of came out of that, maybe some other meetings that I was in. One of them is, there's been previous conversations about parking meters, and if that's even a viable option. And if so, then, how do we get those meters down there? How do we support that infrastructure? Are those just Wi-Fi or not? There's a number of companies out there that do intelligent traffic monitoring, where we can have sensors up on the poles, the same sensors or same poles that we have for 5G or smart cities or cameras. You can put these sensors on, and it looks at parking spots to determine if there's available parking or not. And if we can monitor and track parking practices, with those tools. And I know there's probably a handful of other ones that I'm forgetting. Alderman Matthew, do you have any other ones that you want to add there?
So one that I just emailed you about over the weekend is, I don't know if anybody has looked at some sort of a text messaging system for the city as well. The reason why it came up is specifically for a water main break where we had to issue a boil order, and we had people who did not get notified in what I would think is a timely enough manner. So if we could create a system where we could say, hey, I live at this house at this address, and I want any notifications that something's happening at the city that might affect my house, be that a boil order, or maybe it's a fire alert, or there's zoning changes that are going to affect your property, or things of that nature. If we could have some sort of a system where people could choose to opt in to receive notifications that way. And I know it's kind of a complicated system I'm talking about, but if we can improve communications, because I mentioned this to Ravi, that I think, we've got an entire generation. We're legally required to put notifications in the newspaper, and we're legally required to mail letters to everybody. And I think we've got generations of people who don't read the mail because they assume it's spam because all their bills are automated. So, which is me, I don't read the mail. And then we also have people who don't read the newspapers anymore, particularly if you're online and reading the paragraph only online, you never see any of the notices section that just, who searched to that section on, is it even on Paragraph Online? I don't even know. So how do we communicate with new generations of people who use and view information completely differently? I don't know. That was a long-winded thing that I think that that's something that is necessary. Or if we can build it into an app, and the My Bloomington app lets you self-register, I own a business and I want any notifications about this property, and here's my house. I want any notifications about this property. Just a couple of thoughts.
Well,
Rambling
there
there.
are services that do that. I mean, you would have to connect your web front end to those things, but Twilio does that all day long. As an example, there's a lot of infrastructure that built out and support there, so it's not just a small undertaking.
Yeah, I mean, I will touch on that just a little bit. So we do have a service called Gov Delivery that does both SMS and email notifications. And then we actually currently have over 55,000 subscribers on that for various topics. So it's not so much of how do we do it. It's really kind of falls back on the business process and, how do we make sure that we've got the communication going out to the right people and getting them signed up and making sure that they're maintaining, their subscription. And then how do we incorporate that as part of our business process to make sure we send out those notifications when need be. So certainly, technology side of it is relatively simple, especially since we already have it. But the bigger discussion is, how do we incorporate that into all of our general processes that Alderman Matthew mentioned.
I'm glad Jamie mentioned, because I was going to bring it up as well, because that, as he said, that's a conversation we just had. And whether that is, something integrated in the My Bloomington app or just more working into the process to leverage Facebook or other social media to get notifications out there. And whether there's a policy around, if there's a notification, maybe you turn off comments because it's a push only type of thing, or just get some discussion on how that would work to get word out to people about things.
Yeah, and it is a whole communication strategy, that we would need to do a campaign, to get that word out, to make sure that we're pushing that message, for 2 weeks, to make sure that everybody's seeing it in the right channels, like you just mentioned. But for those of you that are interested, if you go to the city's website, from the main menu, go to the I Want To menu, and the first icon there is email and SMS electronic notifications. And you click on that, you can sign up with the phone number or email address, and then you get a list of every topic that you want to subscribe to. One of the things that we've used this system for probably, I hate to say almost 10 years now. And we use it quite a bit because part of being a government organization, we do have to abide by, and it's a kind of an outdated act at this point, but it's the CAN-SPAM Act of, I think, 1980. But basically, the crux of that act is, because we're government, we have to ensure that that we're not spamming people. If someone unsubscribes from a notification or an email, that we're able to track and prove that we're not sending email to that person if we're called to produce that data. So Gov Delivery is a service that's, it sounds like it's specifically for government organizations that they handle the whitelisting of those email notifications to make sure that we never get blacklisted because it's known to be from a government organization. We're not sending out, sales and, junk mail, basically, that it's actually governmental messages and notifications. So that's the first thing. The second thing, that we get from that solution is we do have that full auditing capability. So any notification we send out, we can say, Ravi, I can look you up and I can show you every notification that we sent and when we sent it, and if you clicked on it, things like that. So it's a very useful tool, and it's one of those tools that sounds simple in the private sector, but because we're public sector, we usually have more rules and regulations that go along and make things a little more complicated. But even in that regard, it is a tool that we have, and it's a very good tool. It works very well. It's, again, just building the process behind it to make sure that we're getting the communications out that we need to get out.
Craig, is there a way that we have to associate. I mean, that's, yes, that system is cool. I've subscribed to it on several different channels and I get messages about various parts going on around the city. But, you know, honestly, I don't care if there's a water main break out by Ravi's house because he lives in the exact opposite side of Bloomington from me. So is there a way through the GovHR to really start making it so people can register to get notifications about specific properties? And I'm thinking, when I say properties, I'm thinking, okay, I have one house, but if you got somebody who's you know, has a bunch of rental properties, maybe they want to subscribe to get notifications about all the rental properties or businesses or whatever it might be. But I think if we can figure out a way to target specifically so people pay attention because they know they're only signed up for things about their specific properties, you know, enlighten self-interest, right?
Yeah, no, I understand where you're going there, and that's where it gets complicated. The system itself, again, can do all that. It's through a demographics module, you know. So part of that registration process is we can define or ask questions, you know, when that person registers, or in fact when we populate them, you know, we can pre-fill some of those demographic information. And then as we send out these notifications, you know, we can filter based on those demographics. So, you know, a simple one, you know, that we have in there now is, are you a resident of the city of Bloomington? Yes or no. And then that way we can at least filter out and find out, you know, send out notifications to only city residents or even guests and citizens that just visit the area. Another question would be, what ward do you live in? When it gets into specific locations or ranges of locations, or a buffer region for a location, you know, that's where we're going to have to look at how we can tie that into like a GIS system, or our Munis system has some of that capability as well. And this system also is very extensible. It has, you know, XML web services that we can tap into, you know, so there may be a possibility, you know, through a professional services agreement that we can try and get maybe some of that integration built in. I don't know. We've never explored that yet, but I'm pretty sure that possibilities are there.
Very cool. I was also thinking that one service that pretty much everybody has to sign up for us is water. And that might be a good way to start getting some of that data, that as people sign up for a water bill, hey, do you want to sign up to get text messages about your property, specific property, you know, that in terms of data collection and processes, that might be one great avenue to start from. Where we'll probably catch 90% of people at that point right there.
Yeah, and it's timely that you mentioned that, because, you know, we are in the process of upgrading our water billing platform, and that is expected to go live here in the next couple of weeks. I think it's March 22nd, if I'm not mistaken. But you know, that system will do exactly kind of what you're talking about. Now, it's not necessarily directly integrated with Gov Delivery, you know, so it's not that single solution for notifications, but part of that Invoice Cloud / Munis utility billing solution will provide us a more electronic platform to be able to communicate to water bill customers, and be able to send out those notifications instead of having to send out paper bills. You know, that's really the goal, is to kind of try and drive people to adopt, you know, paperless and online bill payments. You know, we're going to have all the modern payment options now, where you can pay online with a credit card or a text message or a bank draft, or multiple options there. So it's like I said, very timely that you mentioned that.
Bitcoin?
Maybe. I don't know.
No, just kidding on that.
So, but yeah, that's coming actually very soon.
Thank you for that info. Appreciate that, Craig.
Yeah, all very interesting. Any other comments in this area? No.
So like I said, nothing really has been, you know, defined yet. Those are just ideas at this point, but I think there's a possibility within the next month or two that we may, you know, have some of those specific tasks that we can dive into and really start researching.
I'd be really interested in taking on a couple of those tasks. Being a downtown resident, pretty interested in that.
Okay, excellent. And you don't have anything to do yet, so that'd be good.
I'm in.
Thanks, Robert.
Okay, if that's it, we can move on to adjournment unless anyone has any additional new business. Okay. Is it appropriate for me to make a motion to adjourn? I do, if it's appropriate.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm sure we can get a couple people.
I'll second.
Robbie seconds. Craig, do we need a roll call?
I don't think we need a roll call for adjournment.
Okay.
I think you just do a voice vote on that one.
Yeah.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Aye.
Sounds unanimous. Okay. Another
Thank
fine
you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.